Welcome to a one-storyteller where every tale unfolds with unexpected twists and unforgettable lessons. Today's story will take you on a journey of pride, humility, and redemption. It begins in an upscale restaurant where appearances can be deceiving, and the truth has a way of revealing itself when least expected. The sun was setting over the city, casting a warm golden glow through the large glass windows of Bella Vista, an elegant Italian restaurant known for its exquisite cuisine and impeccable service. The atmosphere inside was serene, with soft classical music playing in the background and the gentle clinking of silverware against fine china. Patrons dressed in their finest attire enjoyed their meals, while waitstaff moved gracefully between tables, ensuring every need was met. Among the diners sat Victoria Langston, a woman whose presence commanded attention. She was impeccably dressed in a designer gown, her jewelry sparkling under the chandelier lights. Victoria was not just wealthy, she was influential, her name synonymous with success in the business world. Her sharp features and piercing gaze exuded confidence, but also a certain air of superiority that made those around her uneasy. Across the room, Emily Carter, a young waitress, navigated the bustling dining area with practiced ease. At 24, Emily had been working at Bella Vista for 2 years, balancing her job with night classes at a local community college. Her dream was to become a chef and open her own restaurant someday. Despite the long hours and demanding customers, Emily approached her work with a smile, always striving to provide the best service possible. As fate would have it, Emily was assigned to Victoria's table that evening. Little did she know this encounter would change both their lives forever. Emily approached Victoria's table with a warm smile, ready to greet her new customer. "Good evening, ma'am," she said politely, holding her notepad at the ready. "Welcome to Bella Vista. Can I start you off with something to drink?" Victoria barely glanced up from her phone, her fingers tapping impatiently against the screen. Finally, she looked at Emily, her expression one of mild annoyance. "I suppose you'll do," she said dismissively, before ordering a glass of their most expensive white wine. Emily maintained her professional demeanor despite the slight. "Certainly, ma'am. I'll have that right out for you." As Emily turned to leave, Victoria called after her, "And make sure it's chilled properly. I won't tolerate warm wine." The comment drew a few curious glances from nearby tables, but Emily simply nodded and headed toward the bar. She knew better than to let such remarks affect her professionalism, especially during the dinner rush. When she returned with the wine, Victoria inspected the glass critically before taking a small sip. "This will do," she declared, though her tone suggested it was more out of obligation than satisfaction. "Now bring me your chef's special pasta and make sure it's prepared exactly as I like it, al dente with extra parmesan." Emily carefully noted the order, aware that Victoria hadn't actually specified what she liked beyond the basic preparation. "Very good, ma'am. I'll ensure the kitchen prepares it to your exact specifications." As Emily moved away, Victoria watched her go with a critical eye. "Such a plain girl," she thought to herself, shaking her head slightly. "These days, anyone thinks they can work in fine dining regardless of their background or appearance." Throughout the meal, Victoria continued to find fault with everything from the temperature of her water to the arrangement of flowers on the table. Each time, Emily responded with calm efficiency, never allowing her frustration to show. Other staff members noticed the difficult customer, but Emily assured them she could handle it. The tension reached its peak when Victoria received her dessert, a tiramisu that was widely considered Bella Vista's signature dish. After one bite, she pushed the plate away dramatically. "This is unacceptable," she announced loud enough for several tables to hear. "The balance of flavors is completely off and the texture is all wrong." Emily approached cautiously, aware that several patrons were now watching the scene unfold. "I'm very sorry to hear that, ma'am," she said, genuinely concerned. "Would you like me to have the chef prepare another dessert for you?" Victoria's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Don't bother," she snapped. "Clearly your establishment doesn't understand true quality. People like you probably couldn't appreciate fine dining if it hit you in the face." The insult hung in the air, heavy and cutting. Emily felt her cheeks flush, but she forced herself to maintain her composure. Is there anything else I can do to improve your experience, ma'am? Victoria waved her hand dismissively as if shooing away an annoying insect. Just bring me my bill, and make sure there's no gratuity added. You certainly haven't earned it. Several nearby diners exchanged uncomfortable glances while others pretended not to notice. Emily collected the check and processed it quickly, bringing it back to Victoria with a polite thank you for dining with us. As Victoria gathered her belongings, she delivered one final blow. Perhaps if you worked harder on your appearance and attitude, you might attract better tips, though I doubt even that would help someone of your obvious limitation. With that, Victoria swept out of the restaurant, leaving behind a wake of embarrassment and discomfort. Emily stood frozen for a moment before retreating to the staff area, where she finally allowed herself to process what had just happened. Little did anyone know that this encounter was far from over, and that Victoria's words would soon come back to haunt her in ways she could never have imagined. In the staff break room, Emily took a moment to compose herself after Victoria's departure. Her colleagues immediately noticed her distress and gathered around, offering support and sharing their own experiences with difficult customers. Sarah, a veteran server who had been working at Bella Vista for over 5 years, placed a comforting hand on Emily's shoulder. "Don't let her get to you," she said firmly. "We've all had customers like that, and honestly, it says more about them than it does about us." Emily managed a small smile, grateful for the solidarity. "Thanks, everyone," she said softly. "I know she's just one person, but sometimes it feels like these moments define us, you know?" Across town, Victoria arrived at her penthouse apartment, still fuming about her dining experience. She poured herself a glass of imported champagne and settled into her favorite armchair overlooking the city lights. "The nerve of that waitress," she muttered to herself. "No class, no refinement, and certainly no understanding of proper service." In her mind, the entire evening had been a disaster, and she was determined to ensure that Bella Vista would hear about her dissatisfaction. The next morning, Victoria made good on her promise. She drafted a scathing review on multiple online platforms detailing her terrible experience and specifically mentioning Emily's supposed incompetence. Her social media following, which numbered in the hundreds of thousands, amplified her complaints, reaching far beyond the usual scope of restaurant reviews. Within hours, Bella Vista's management was inundated with messages from concerned patrons and curious food critics alike. At the restaurant, Emily arrived for her shift, unaware of the storm brewing online. The normally cheerful morning routine felt heavier somehow, but she attributed it to residual feelings from the previous night. It wasn't until she checked in with Marco, the restaurant manager, that she learned about Victoria's campaign against her. Marco led Emily to his office, where he showed her the various reviews and social media posts. His expression was serious but not unkind. "Emily, I need to talk to you about last night," he began. "I've reviewed the security footage and spoken with other staff members. From what I can see, you handled the situation professionally, despite some extremely difficult circumstances." Emily felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. "Thank you, Marco," she said quietly. "I really did try my best, but I know how important our reputation is. What happens now?" Before Marco could respond, the restaurant's owner entered the office. Everyone at Bella Vista knew that the establishment was part of a larger hospitality group, but few had ever met the actual owner. The man who walked in was tall, with salt and pepper hair and an air of quiet authority that immediately commanded respect. "Good morning, Marco," he said before turning his attention to Emily. "Ms. Carter, I presume. My name is Alexander Bennett, and I believe we need to have a conversation about recent events." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had heard whispers about Alexander Bennett's reputation in the industry, but never imagined meeting him personally, especially under these circumstances. "Mr. Bennett," she stammered, suddenly very aware of her uniform and the fact that she hadn't had time to properly prepare for such an important meeting. "Please sit down," Alexander said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Now, let's discuss what really happened last night and how we're going to address this situation." His tone was measured, but there was an underlying intensity that suggested this meeting would be far more significant than either Emily or Victoria could have anticipated. As Alexander Bennett settled into his seat opposite Emily, he began speaking in a voice that carried both authority and genuine interest. "Miss Carter, I've been reviewing not only the incident with Mrs. Langston, but also your entire employment record here at Bella Vista. Your dedication to your studies while maintaining excellent performance at work is truly commendable." He paused, studying Emily's reaction carefully. "However, I must admit I'm particularly interested in how you maintained your professionalism during what was clearly an exceptionally challenging situation." Emily shifted slightly in her chair, feeling both honored and nervous under such direct scrutiny from someone of Alexander's stature. "Thank you, sir," she replied, choosing her words carefully. "I've always believed that every guest deserves respect, regardless of how they treat us. It's not just about the restaurant's reputation, but about maintaining my own standards of conduct." Alexander nodded approvingly. "That's precisely the attitude that makes exceptional leaders," he observed. "Now, regarding Mrs. Langston's behavior and subsequent actions, I want you to understand something very important. Here at Bella Vista, we value our staff as much as our patrons, and we don't tolerate abuse of any kind. Her reviews and social media posts are currently damaging not only your reputation, but that of our entire establishment." Alexander nodded approvingly. "That's precisely the attitude that makes exceptional leaders," he observed. "Now, regarding Mrs. Langston's behavior and subsequent actions, I want you to understand something very important. Here at Bella Vista, we value our staff as much as our patrons, and we don't tolerate abuse of any kind. Her reviews and social media posts are currently damaging not only your reputation, but that of our entire establishment." He opened a folder on the desk, revealing several documents and screenshots. "We've already issued a formal response addressing her claims and providing evidence from our security footage. Furthermore, I've decided to take this opportunity to implement some changes in how we handle similar situations in the future. Your experience will help us create better protocols for staff protection." Emily listened intently, processing the weight of Alexander's words. "Does this mean I might face consequences for how the situation was handled?" she asked hesitantly. "On the contrary," Alexander responded with a small smile. "I'm considering promoting you to assistant manager. Your ability to remain composed under pressure demonstrates leadership qualities we desperately need in our management team. Of course, this decision isn't solely based on yesterday's events, but rather your consistent performance over the past 2 years." The revelation caught Emily completely off guard. I don't know what to say," she stammered, overwhelmed by the unexpected turn of events. "Thank you for believing in me, Mr. Bennett." Before they could continue their discussion, Marco interrupted with an urgent message. "Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Langston is here and demanding to speak with management. She says she won't leave until her concerns are addressed personally." Alexander's expression hardened slightly, but his voice remained calm. "Very well. Miss Carter, I'd like you to join me in this meeting. Your perspective will be invaluable, and I believe it's time Mrs. Langston understands the full impact of her actions." As they made their way to the private meeting room, Emily felt a mix of apprehension and determination. She realized that this confrontation would likely determine not just her future at Bella Vista, but possibly the trajectory of her entire career. The private meeting room at Bella Vista was designed for discretion, with soundproof walls and tasteful decor that maintained the restaurant's elegant atmosphere. Alexander Bennett entered first, followed by Emily, whose presence seemed to surprise Victoria considerably. Mrs. Langston Alexander began formally gesturing for her to take a seat. "Thank you for coming in today. I'm Alexander Bennett, owner of this establishment, and I believe we have some matters to discuss." Victoria's eyes widened slightly at the introduction, but she quickly masked her surprise with her usual air of superiority. "Mr. Bennett," she began, her voice carrying the same commanding tone she used in board meetings. "Ha! I'm glad to finally speak with someone who understands the importance of quality service. Your staff particularly, that waitress failed to meet even the most basic standards of fine dining." Alexander maintained a neutral expression as he took his seat. Actually, Mrs. Langston, I've thoroughly reviewed the incident, including security footage and staff statements. Before we proceed, I'd like to introduce Emily Carter, who was directly involved in your dining experience. Her perspective is crucial to understanding the full context of what transpired. Victoria's lips pressed into a thin line, clearly displeased by Emily's presence. "Very well," she said stiffly, "but I hope you understand that my concerns are legitimate and deserve proper attention." "Absolutely," Alexander agreed, leaning forward slightly. "Let's begin with your initial complaint about the tiramisu. Our pastry chef has won numerous awards for that particular dessert, and no other guests that evening reported any issues. Could you elaborate on what specifically you found unsatisfactory?" Victoria faltered, momentarily caught off guard by the specific challenge. "Well, it was different from what I expected," she hedged. "The texture was off and the coffee flavor too strong." Emily spoke up, gently interrupting. "Actually, ma'am, our tiramisu recipe uses a traditional method that requires a stronger coffee infusion. Many of our regular patrons particularly appreciate this authentic approach. I recall you didn't mention any specific preferences when ordering." Vidia's cheeks flushed slightly, but she recovered quickly. Regardless of the recipe, the presentation was lacking, and the portion size was inadequate for the price. Alexander interjected smoothly. "According to our records, you ordered the standard portion size, which aligns with industry standards for fine dining establishments. Regarding presentation, our dessert has consistently received high praise from both patrons and food critics alike." The conversation continued in this manner, with Alexander methodically addressing each of Victoria's complaints, while Emily provided supporting details from her experience. With each point, Victoria's confidence seemed to waver slightly as she realized the depth of research and documentation backing the restaurant's position. Finally, Alexander presented the security footage showing Victoria's interactions with Emily throughout the evening. The visual evidence was undeniable, capturing not only Emily's professional demeanor but also Victoria's increasingly unreasonable behavior. "Mrs. Langston," he said firmly as the video concluded, "while we value all customer feedback, we must also maintain standards of mutual respect. Your treatment of our staff was unacceptable, and your public statements have caused significant damage to both Emily's reputation and our establishment's standing." Victoria's composure finally cracked as she watched herself on screen, her earlier insults and dismissive gestures now impossible to deny. I didn't realize," he stammered, for perhaps the first time in her life, struggling to maintain her usual authoritative facade. The meeting marked a turning point, not just in resolving the immediate conflict, but in demonstrating the restaurant's commitment to protecting its staff while maintaining professional integrity. As the conversation continued, it became clear that Victoria would need to confront not only the consequences of her actions, but also the deeper implications of how her behavior reflected on her own character and values. As the meeting progressed, Victoria's carefully constructed facade began to crumble under the weight of undeniable evidence and Alexander's unwavering stance. "Mr. Bennett," she attempted again, her voice noticeably less confident. "Surely we can resolve this matter without further escalation, perhaps a private apology or some form of compensation." Alexander held up his hand gently but firmly, stopping her mid-sentence. "Mrs. Langston, I appreciate your willingness to discuss resolution, but let's be clear about the situation. Your behavior went beyond mere dissatisfaction with service. The language you used and the public nature of your complaints crossed professional boundaries. We've already received numerous messages from patrons who witnessed your treatment of Emily, and they've expressed their disappointment in your conduct." Victoria's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her glass of water. "I had no idea it would escalate this way," she admitted, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. "I was having a bad day, and perhaps I let my frustrations get the better of me." Emily, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke up, her voice steady and compassionate. "Mrs. Langston, I understand that everyone has difficult days. In my position, I've learned to separate personal challenges from professional responsibilities. The difference is that when I make mistakes, I acknowledge them and work to improve." The simple statement seemed to strike a chord with Victoria, who suddenly looked years older than when she had entered the room. "You're right," she acknowledged, tears welling up in her eyes. "I've spent so much of my life focused on success and appearances that I forgot basic human decency. The way I treated you, it was inexcusable." Alexander nodded approvingly at this breakthrough. "Recognition is the first step toward meaningful change," he observed. "However, words alone aren't enough. Your public statements have caused real damage to both Emily's reputation and our restaurant's standing. To move forward, we need to address these consequences constructively." Victoria straightened in her chair, determination replacing her earlier defensiveness. "Tell me what needs to be done," she said firmly. "I'll issue a public apology, retract my reviews, and compensate the restaurant for any lost business. More importantly, I want to learn from this experience. Perhaps I could volunteer some time here to better understand the challenges faced by service industry professionals." The suggestion surprised everyone in the room, including Victoria herself. Emily smiled warmly, recognizing the genuine effort behind the offer. "That would mean a lot, ma'am," she said sincerely. "Many people could benefit from seeing the reality behind fine dining service." Alexander extended his hand across the table, sealing the agreement. "Welcome to your first lesson in authentic leadership, Mrs. Langston," he said with a hint of a smile. "Starting tomorrow, you'll begin working alongside our staff, learning every aspect of our operations. Consider it an investment in personal growth and community building." As they finalized the details of Victoria's restitution and educational program, the atmosphere in the room transformed from confrontation to collaboration. What had begun as a potential public relations disaster was evolving into an opportunity for profound personal transformation and institutional improvement. The meeting concluded with Victoria making her first public apology through the restaurant's official channels, acknowledging her inappropriate behavior and praising Emily's professionalism. The post quickly gained traction, with many followers expressing appreciation for her willingness to own her mistakes and grow from them. Later that evening, as Emily prepared to leave work, she found Victoria waiting by the staff exit. "Miss Carter, may I have a moment?" she asked, her voice carrying genuine humility. "I wanted to personally apologize again and thank you for handling everything with such grace. You've taught me more about true strength and character in one evening than I've learned in years of corporate training." Emily accepted the apology with quiet dignity. "We all have moments we're not proud of, ma'am. What matters is how we choose to grow from them. I believe you're taking the right steps toward positive change." Their exchange marked the beginning of an unexpected friendship built on mutual respect and shared growth. Meanwhile, Alexander implemented new policies at Bella Vista, inspired by the incident, including mandatory sensitivity training for all staff and enhanced support systems for dealing with difficult customers. The restaurant's reputation emerged stronger than ever, with patrons appreciating the establishment's commitment to both excellence and ethical standards. Food critics praised the innovative approach to conflict resolution, while industry publications highlighted Bella Vista as a model for modern hospitality management. For Emily, the experience proved transformative in ways she never anticipated. Her promotion to assistant manager came with increased responsibilities and opportunities to influence positive change within the organization. She found herself mentoring new staff members, sharing the lessons she'd learned about maintaining professionalism while advocating for oneself and colleagues. Victoria's transformation extended far beyond her time at Bella Vista. She began implementing similar educational programs in her own company, encouraging executives to spend time working in various operational roles. Her public acknowledgement of personal growth inspired others in her social circle to examine their own behaviors and privileges, leading to broader discussions about workplace dynamics and social responsibility. The ripple effects of that single evening at Bella Vista continued to spread, touching countless lives and influencing organizational cultures across multiple industries. What had started as a confrontation born of pride and prejudice evolved into a powerful narrative about redemption, empathy, and the enduring impact of choosing growth over defensiveness. As the weeks turned into months, the changes initiated by that fateful evening at Bella Vista continued to unfold, creating waves of positive transformation throughout the community. Emily embraced her new role as assistant manager with enthusiasm and dedication. Her natural leadership abilities blossomed as she implemented innovative training programs that emphasized both technical skills and emotional intelligence. Under her guidance, new staff members learned not just how to serve, but how to navigate challenging situations with grace and professionalism. Victoria's journey of personal growth took unexpected turns as well. Her volunteer work at the restaurant evolved into a full-fledged mentorship program connecting successful business leaders with service industry professionals. She discovered a passion for bridging the gap between corporate boardrooms and frontline workers, organizing workshops that fostered mutual understanding and respect. Her company became known for its progressive workplace policies, earning numerous awards for employee satisfaction and community engagement. The restaurant itself flourished under this renewed spirit of collaboration and innovation. Alexander Bennett expanded Bella Vista's mission beyond fine dining to include educational initiatives and community outreach programs. The establishment became a hub for culinary arts education, offering scholarships to aspiring chefs, and hosting regular workshops that brought together professionals from various sectors to share knowledge and experiences. Perhaps most remarkably, the relationship between Emily and Victoria developed into a powerful partnership. They co-authored a book titled Service and Substance, Redefining Professional Excellence, which became a bestseller in both business and self-help categories. Their speaking engagements drew crowds eager to learn from their unique perspectives on leadership, authenticity, and personal growth. Together, they established a foundation dedicated to supporting service industry professionals pursuing higher education and career advancement. Perhaps most remarkably, the relationship between Emily and Victoria developed into a powerful partnership. They co-authored a book titled Service and Substance, Redefining Professional Excellence, which became a bestseller in both business and self-help categories. Their speaking engagements drew crowds eager to learn from their unique perspectives on leadership, authenticity, and personal growth. Together, they established a foundation dedicated to supporting service industry professionals, pursuing higher education and career advancement. The incident's impact reached far beyond individual success stories. Local businesses began adopting similar approaches to staff development and customer relations, creating a cultural shift in how service industries operated. Food critics and business analysts alike pointed to Bella Vista as a case study in transformative leadership and sustainable growth. The restaurant's annual gala, which featured both fine dining and educational panels, became one of the most anticipated events in the city's social calendar. Emily's dream of opening her own restaurant took shape faster than she had imagined, thanks to the network of support and resources that emerged from these developments. Her vision combined elements of fine dining with community-focused programming, creating a space where culinary excellence and social responsibility intertwined seamlessly. Victoria became one of her earliest investors, not out of charity, but because she recognized the potential for meaningful impact. The story of that evening continued to inspire new initiatives and conversations about workplace dynamics, privilege, and personal accountability. Schools incorporated elements of Emily and Victoria's experiences into their curricula, teaching students about conflict resolution, leadership, and the power of growth mindset. Social media campaigns launched by Bella Vista encouraged people to share their own stories of transformation and learning, creating a global movement centered on empathy and understanding. As seasons changed and years passed, the legacy of that single evening grew richer and more complex. What had begun as a clash of personalities evolved into a testament to the human capacity for change and connection. The restaurant's walls, which had witnessed both conflict and reconciliation, now bore witness to countless other transformations, as people from diverse backgrounds came together to learn, share, and grow. The impact rippled outward, touching lives in ways both visible and subtle. Former skeptics of service industry work found new appreciation for the skill and dedication required. Young professionals inspired by Emily's journey pursued careers in hospitality with renewed purpose. Established leaders like Victoria demonstrated that growth and learning know no age limits, and that true success includes lifting others up along the way. In the end, the story of wealthy woman insults waitress became more than just a cautionary tale or a feel-good redemption arc. It became a living example of how moments of conflict, when approached with openness and courage, can transform into catalysts for widespread positive change. The characters involved weren't just changed by their experiences, they became agents of change themselves, inspiring countless others to embrace growth, vulnerability, and the endless possibilities that emerge when we choose understanding over judgment. And now, dear viewers, as we reach the end of this remarkable journey, we invite you to reflect on the stories unfolding in your own lives. How many moments of potential transformation pass us by, unnoticed? How often do we miss opportunities to grow, learn, and connect because we're too focused on appearances or preconceived notions? At A1 Storyteller, we believe every encounter holds the seed of something extraordinary, if only we have the courage to nurture it. We want to hear from you. Have you experienced a moment that changed your perspective forever? Do you know someone who transformed adversity into opportunity? Share your stories in the comments below, and who knows, your experience might become our next feature. Remember to subscribe to A1 Storyteller for more tales of human connection and transformation. Each week we bring you stories that remind us of our shared humanity and the incredible power of change. Before you go, take a moment to consider this. Every person you meet carries their own story of struggle, triumph, and growth. Like Emily and Victoria, we all have the capacity to surprise ourselves and others with our resilience and willingness to evolve. So the next time you find yourself in a challenging situation, ask yourself, what opportunity for growth might be hidden within this moment? Thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery. Until next time, keep sharing your stories, keep embracing change, and remember that sometimes the most unexpected encounters can lead to the most beautiful transformations. This is A1 Storyteller signing off. But our stories never truly end. They just wait for you to continue them in your own life.